Hi everyone, welcome to Intel's Futuregen program, and I am Will Lowther here from Splash Damage. I'm the head of business development. I'm here to talk to you about what that means in the gaming space. I've been in the gaming industry for about 12 years now. I joined the industry straight out of university and really have done a couple of different roles. I kind of fell into business development by accident and really just want to talk to you about how I got there, what does this actually mean, and how could you get into this space as well. So I did a degree. I went to university. I went to Dartmouth University. I did a degree called Electronic Games Tech, which to most of you will mean absolutely nothing. At the time, it was a way of talking about doing a little bit of everything that went into making a game and how you could learn a bit of everything. So this was computer science, modeling, audio, 2D design, a lot of mathematics, a lot of low-level engineering work, pretty much everything. And back in mid 2000s, this was a way for people to get educated as to perhaps being a producer in the games industry, or then being able to be trained by a game studio on how to become one of those disciplines, but knowing a bit about everything. And really, I kind of picked this because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Again, still going into uni, which I'm sure a lot of people have the same problem. I just couldn't really decide, but I liked games, so I figured I'd go learn a bit about all of them. I was gaming since before I could walk. If you talk to my parents, apparently this is true. I would quite happily sit on my mum's lap, play games like Eye of the Beholder and things like that, which is a far too young age on IBMs, Amigas, those kind of games. And at one point, I pretended to be good at video games. I played for a couple of pro teams. I won a few LANs. I went to Korea for a while. I did CPL, World Cyber Games, showing my age here, but certainly, tried to pretend to be quite good at video games. Unfortunately, back then, there was no money in this kind of thing, so I had to kind of go and get a real job, unfortunately, much to my parents' amusement. Over the years, I've developed what I call kind of a T-shaped skill set, and for those of you who aren't familiar with that, that means that I'm good at one thing and know a bunch of stuff about everything else. And those kinds of people are useful in some places and not useful in others, but particularly in business development, that's quite a strong background for people. How did I get into the games industry, right? I talked about being a player a little bit here. I certainly played a lot of games at a lot of computer events. For those of you old enough to remember what a CRT is, this was the first LAN party I attended, which was I-12, which is what Insomnia was called back then. And this was my first event. I think I was 13. And really just getting into being a kind of consumer of this idea that despite having to, rather than being at home on 56K modems and playing games there, you could go somewhere where there was 1,000 people in a room that all enjoyed the same thing as you. I was a player for a long time, competed a bunch, won some money. Then I became a volunteer as well. So I would run basically tournament operations for things like Call of Duty events, Dare Defeat, games like that, but also would help generally with the event, a bit of expertise here and there. Ultimately, it got to the point where I was finishing university and I thought about what I was going to do for a job. I thought I was going to join a game studio. Craig Fletcher, who was the CEO and founder of Multiplay, said, "Do you want to just come work for us instead?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And that was how I kind of joined Multiplay. So I joined just after the recession in 2008. It was a very tough time for a lot of businesses, Multiplay included back then. I think there was 6 of us when I joined the company, maybe 7. And I started out doing customer support. So that was everything from, I've paid for this, I paid for a LAN party ticket, but it isn't working. Or I've rented a game server and it doesn't work. Or I'm on your Multiplay ADSL service and I'm getting lag. All of these things just being thrown at you and just trying to have to figure them out. It's a great problem-solving expertise, but also it meant that I get to learn a bit of everything, right? A bit of every part of the business, just trying to help customers fix what they were doing with us. Fairly quickly, thankfully, Multiplay kind of grew out of the recession. There was a few tough events, but we started to kind of get back on, back up speed and grow again. And I moved to operations management. So I know that some of these other talks have been from ops managers in esports particularly, but this for me was helping to run some of the Insomnia events, delivering some of the external events, such as the first Minecon in Paris, and then also doing a lot of purchasing for online. And so by purchasing, I mean basically getting what we needed to run the online business, but at the best price with the best quality and all those kind of things, making sure that the people we worked with are good. Could I get the best price? A bit of haggling, a bit of negotiation and things like that. And then really the thing that I was particularly good at and found a lot of interest in was this developer and publisher relations. So back in these days, all of the games were originally you would just get the server files, you put them on the internet, and the consumers would have to kind of figure it out themselves, right? A lot of you would have had early game servers that you rented when you were younger and things like that. There was no real like matchmaking or skill-based matchmaking or anything like that these days. You had to kind of get your own clan server, play with a bunch of mates, all those kind of things. And when Battlefield came out, particularly, it started shifting towards, for cheating purposes and statistics and things like that, they only wanted to work with a few select partners. So making sure that you were one of those partners was very important for a business. But also then, like, you still wanted to do right by consumers, so making sure the product was good. If there were problems, you were feeding them back to developers and all those kind of things. I'll be honest, at this point, I was, 23, I think, at this point in my career, 24 maybe. I made a lot of mistakes. There were some of these things I wasn't good at. We were a team of, I don't know, 10, 15 people perhaps. And you had to do a bit of everything. There were some things I was really good at and some things I honestly sucked at. And once figuring this out, I said, okay, great. What we actually want to do is hire a new operations person and let me focus purely on this business development part. And so business development, what are we actually talking about here, right? It's a term used a lot for a lot of different things. And I just want to touch a bit about what that is. What does it mean? What might it mean to you? So it could be different things to different people. Specifically, if I put my games hat on, it typically means kind of anything but making the game. If you're in a small studio, it might mean literally everything except for making the game. If you're in a bigger studio, you'll obviously have, specialists in those roles. But a lot of the work is kind of platform relationships, deals, and working a lot with the contractors, agencies, and figuring out kind of like, okay, how does an indie game become a $15 game or a $20 game, $25 game? Who picks that? Why do they pick that? Why would a consumer pay $20 and not $25? All of these questions are quite often something that lives in business development and analytics as well. Then on top of all of this, there's a lot of strategic work and partnerships. And I think this is the key thing that really sets aside when somebody says business development rather than sales. In business development, you're quite often looking for not just a sale and then it's a thing and then it's done, but a partnership that extends beyond that quite often will be mutually win-win for both people, but also, or both groups, but also something where, it's like a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 year kind of relationship rather than just, hey, I've sold you a printer and it costs £100 and thank you very much. And so that can be everything from, I think we should, or say someone like Google coming to talk to Splash Damage about making games for Stadia, or, having a project where Multiplay decide that they're going to work a lot with games developers to do matchmaking or something like that. A lot of these things are kind of this high-level strategic work. In some businesses, you're also going to end up in doing some project management and some business planning. I do a lot of project management at the moment. And really, that's just kind of collating a lot of people, a lot of tasks that happen in certain orders, making sure it's all moving moving quickly and everything else and flowing smoothly. Honestly, project management is a skill that's important in a lot of different business functions, and that's true in business development as well. And this kind of this business planning. So, you could go to your business development person and say, what do you think we should be doing in 3 years? Obviously, that's going to be something that the CEO and the executive team of any company will also have a strong opinion on. But business development is quite often the most hands-on with those kind of pieces. And then ultimately, product management. What is the thing that we sell? It's less so perhaps in something like Splash Damage, but somewhere like Multiplay, I definitely spent a lot of time on this. Like, what are customers asking for? What do they want that they don't know that they want yet? What is the next big thing in LAN parties or game server hosting or external events or whatever it might be? A lot of that work, it kind of sits in that project management group. So thanks everyone for watching. It's been great. Hopefully you've learned something or I've said something useful for you. Any questions, again, hit me up on Twitter. Thanks everyone.